This didn't arrive as gossip, it arrived as a detonation. Not whispers, not theories, not recycled screenshots dragged out of internet graves. January 2026 dropped receipts, and once those receipts surfaced, the story stopped being deniable and started becoming dangerous. Brand new yacht photos, crystal clear, never leaked before, never spun, never explained away. Images allegedly pulled from private elite collections, the kind that don't accidentally end up online, the kind that stay buried until someone decides they shouldn't anymore. And those images place Meghan Markle in spaces most people will never see, no matter how hard they work, luxury yachts in Monaco and across the Mediterranean, inside closed-door environments reserved for power, money, and discretion. Let's lock one thing down immediately. These are not photos from her royal years. They are not post-fame. They are not post-marriage. These images date back to 2008 through 2012, the exact years Meghan publicly described herself as a struggling actress barely surviving Hollywood, hustling for auditions, scraping together work wherever she could find it. That timeline matters because once you place those years next to these locations, the math collapses. These weren't floating birthday parties, they weren't charity mixers. According to multiple sources familiar with elite yacht circuits, these were invitation-only networking vessels attended by international billionaires, Saudi-connected elites, and Gulf power brokers. You don't buy a ticket to these spaces. You don't stumble onto them. You are selected. So the real question isn't whether Meghan was on a yacht. The photos answer that. The question is, who put her there? And before anyone rushes in screaming deflection, let's be clear, this isn't commentary. This is timing, access, and silence. Because if these images were innocent, if they were easily explainable, if this was casual networking, Meghan's team would already be talking. They aren't. And silence at this level is never accidental. Here's where the story stops being emotional and starts becoming mathematical. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan's documented income came from minor acting roles, brief television appearances, and short-term gigs. She was not a series lead. She was not independently wealthy. And yet, these photos place her on yachts worth tens of millions of dollars, attending gatherings that cost more per night than most people earn in a year. So let's ask the question plainly, who paid? Cable television doesn't fund Monaco summers. Deal or No Deal doesn't bankroll Mediterranean yacht circuits. Struggling actresses don't casually drift through elite international power spaces without financial backing. Someone covered travel, someone covered access, someone facilitated presence. And no, this wasn't networking like everyone else. This level of networking is strategic, expensive, and intentional. These photos span years, not one night, not one favor, years. Which means this wasn't help, it was support. It wasn't opportunity, it was investment. And investment always expects a return. Inside elite circles, there's a term for what this looks like. It's called strategic social placement. These are environments where people are introduced for a reason. You're brought in because someone believes you can serve a function, socially, relationally, reputationally, or strategically. And once you're inside, you're evaluated quietly. How you speak, who you listen to, who gravitates towards you, and who you're steered away from. And here's the part the photos don't let anyone ignore. Meghan doesn't look like an outsider. She doesn't look overwhelmed. She doesn't look wide-eyed or lost. She looks comfortable, familiar with the hierarchy, aware of who matters. Sources describe her not as a guest, but as a regular presence. Someone who knew how to stay discreet, how to build relationships without leaving a public trail. And that matters, because women don't repeatedly appear in these spaces unless they're being kept. And people don't keep you around in these circles unless you're useful. Now let's talk about who was in those rooms, because this is where mainstream coverage stops cold. The new photos allegedly place Meghan at private gatherings attended by Saudi-connected figures and Gulf elites. Not in public venues, not at charity galas, but on private yachts during peak Monaco seasons alongside facilitators known for connecting international power players. Say this clearly, you do not attend gatherings with Saudi and Gulf elites unless you are vetted, vouched for, and deemed discreet. This isn't celebrity culture, this is international power culture, and discretion is the currency. So when photos leak years later, it signals something changed. These are circles that bury scandals permanently, which means someone inside those networks decided Meghan no longer deserved protection. And that's where the question shifts from was she there, to why is this being exposed now? Because power doesn't forget. And it doesn't expose without reason. After years of appearing in elite international spaces, things start happening. In 2011, Meghan lands Suits. Not after a decade of breakout performances, but after years of elite networking. Then fast forward. In 2016, she's introduced to Prince Harry. Not through chance, not through Hollywood casting, through Soho House. And Soho House isn't a bar. It's a gatekeeping institution, a members-only network merging wealth, media, and politics behind closed doors. Meghan didn't walk into that world inexperienced. She walked in trained, which is why claims that she didn't understand hierarchy don't align with the pattern. Women who survive yacht circuits with Gulf elites don't get blindsided by palaces. They get strategic. And that brings us to the most dangerous part of this story. Not what happened then, but why it's surfacing now. These photos didn't emerge during the wedding. They didn't emerge during the interviews. They surfaced in January 2026, right as Meghan began pushing a carefully curated comeback, lifestyle branding, Netflix projects, image rehabilitation. That timing isn't coincidence, it's surgical. Sources say these images were protected for years, buried, treated as untouchable. And yet here they are, released slowly, just enough to raise questions without exhausting the archive. That's not outrage, that's pressure. And pressure always precedes something else. No denial, no clarification, no explanation, just silence. And silence only works when you expect the story to die. This one isn't dying, because it isn't built on speculation, it's built on pattern. And the longer the silence stretches, the louder one question becomes. If this is what they were willing to show, what are they still holding? This is where the story turns cold. Not loud, not chaotic, but surgical. Because when silence drags on this long, it's not panic, it's calculation. And calculation means someone understands exactly what the photos represent. If these images showed harmless networking, explanations would already be everywhere. If there were innocent context, it would be flooding timelines. If there were receipts to counter the implication, they'd be waved aggressively. Instead, there's nothing. No framing, no spin. No, here's what really happened. Just a wall of quiet while the images circulate, studied frame by people who know these environments far too well. And here's the shift most people miss. When denial doesn't come, attention moves elsewhere, not to what's visible, but to what hasn't been released yet. Because sources familiar with these circles say the leaked yacht photos are not the full archive. They're fragments, samples, proof of life drops designed to confirm authenticity without showing the entire picture. Enough to say, yes, this is real, without revealing everything. And that detail should unsettle anyone paying attention. According to individuals with direct knowledge of elite networking systems, additional materials may exist. Travel records, invitations, guest lists, correspondence, witness accounts from people who saw how these connections were built, nurtured, and protected over time. And here's the chilling part. The people who control that information don't need public validation. They don't need social media outrage. They don't need applause. They just need her to know they still have it. This isn't a scandal exploding. This is a warning phase. And warning phases don't end loudly. They unfold slowly, one controlled release at a time. Just enough pressure to remind someone that discretion was never permanent. It was conditional. Which brings us to the part no one wants to say out loud. Power has a long memory. It remembers who was protected. It remembers who was elevated. And it remembers who broke the rules after doors were opened. For years, Meghan's past stayed sealed beneath reinvention, titles, and narrative control. But narratives don't erase history, they only delay it. And when silence expires, history becomes relevant again. This was never about yachts. It's not even about money. It's about access, about who opened doors, about who vouched, about who facilitated, and about who finally decided they were done keeping those doors closed. Because elite protection doesn't end with anger, it ends with indifference. When someone no longer matters enough to shield, the archive becomes flexible. And what we're watching now isn't destruction, it's repositioning. A reminder that the past doesn't disappear just because a new brand launch says it should. Notice something else. The releases aren't chaotic, they're measured, controlled, not dumped all at once. That's intentional. That's how leverage works. You don't unload the vault, you show enough to confirm you own it. And that changes the entire power dynamic. Now ask yourself this. If these images were meaningless, why were they protected for over a decade? Why didn't they surface during the wedding frenzy? Why not during the interviews? Why not when public appetite was at its peak? Because timing is everything. And timing like this isn't accidental, it's strategic. January 2026 wasn't random. It was the moment a new narrative was being pushed. A soft reset, a rebrand, a future-facing image. And that's exactly when the past walked back into the room. And still, no denial. Silence at this level only exists when the truth is too complex to simplify and too risky to confront. Because once you speak, you invite the next release. And sometimes, staying quiet is an attempt to stop the drip. But here's the part that should make everyone uncomfortable. The people who leak like this don't need to rush. They don't need to overwhelm the public. They know attention cycles. They know pressure points. They know patience. And patience is power. What's unfolding isn't a collapse. It's exposure by reminder. A subtle repositioning of leverage. A quiet signal that protection was never unconditional. And once conditions change, so does silence. So when people ask, why now? The answer is simple. Because now is when it matters. Now is when control was being reasserted somewhere else. Now is when someone decided the balance needed adjusting. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a phase. Because controlled leaks don't exist to shock, they exist to warn. And if this is what they were willing to release publicly, imagine what remains private.